This video provides 11 tips on building a strong foundation for conducting qualitative analysis. So it will be useful if you are doing qualitative analysis at this stage or thinking about doing qualitative analysis. And the material is supported by a book that is called Qualitative Research and Evaluation Methods, Integrating Theory and Practice, and in particular the 4th edition. And the author is Patton, Michael Patton, and the year was 2015. So in terms of the first tip, start your analysis during fieldwork. So Patton sees starting within the fieldwork as a first step in uncovering any patterns that you have in regards to your data. Signals for direction of analysis usually start to take shape during this stage. Earlier stages of the fieldwork tend to be generative and emergent, where you follow wherever the data leads you. But then later stages bring closure, where you move towards confirmatory data collection. This process really will deepen your insights and confirm or disconfirm any patterns that you seem to have appeared in general. Any ideas about making sense of the data that you have, which emerge while in the field, this forms the start of analysis and are considered part of the record of field notes. It is important to track and record any analytical insights that you come across and happen during data collection stage. This is considered the beginning of analysis. However, you should remember never to rush into premature conclusions. But equally, don't really repress any analytical insights that come to you through note-taking when they happen, as they are happening. Patton gave also an example of the importance of analytical insights in driving not only analysis, but also further sampling. So it's important to realize that it could be also useful for driving sampling in terms of like changing the sampling method or something like that. Patton's advice is to not to focus on confirming emergent patterns while you are in the field when deciding to add more data, so say more cases. That's because the inquirer should instead become sensitive to looking for alternative explanations and patterns which would invalidate the initial insights that the inquirer have. Gaps and uncertainties may lead to more data collection, and that is why fieldwork may not be over. So you got to keep this in mind, because you might develop some gaps, you might have some uncertainties, so data collection will continue. Where possible, participants may need to be recontacted to clarify or deepen any of the responses that they gave you, or that new observations are created to enrich descriptions. And also another advice by Patton was against perfection, as perfection breeds imperfectionism. So additional field work may never be possible. Again, you got to also keep that in mind. Therefore, for that reason, gaps and any unresolved ambiguities in your data can be noted as part of the final report that you do. And in terms of dissertations, these are cited as one example that will limit additional fieldwork. So you can put that as a note in your dissertation or your report. Tip number 2, have an inventory and organize raw data for analysis. So Patton here provided excellent information on how to go about starting with the data analysis process and dealing with your raw data, the data that you have. Like, for example, say interviews, things like that. And his general advice was that have an inventory of what you have. And also ask several questions, like, for example, are the field notes that you have complete? Are there any parts that you put off to write later but never got to doing what you needed to do and what need to be finished, even at a late stage before starting analysis? Are there any glaring holes in the data that you can fill by collecting additional data before your analysis starts? Are all data properly labeled with a notation system that will make retrieval manageable in terms of dates, places, interview identifying information, and so on? Are interview transcripts complete? And assess the quality of information that you have collected. So get a sense of the whole. This is Patton's list of questions that you can ask as part of this tip, which is very useful. Tip number 3, fill in the gaps. Make sure your transcription is word for word and not summarized in any shape or form. It should be verbatim transcriptions. Doing transcriptions yourself provides a chance for you to really immerse yourself in the data, which can create important insights. And if you're using any transcription, external transcription services, make sure that you actually read those transcriptions to make sure that they reflect what has been said, that they are not reading anything gibberish, there are no missing data, that kind of thing. And also it will help you to create important insights as you are going through the transcripts and also reading and listening to the recording. And typing and organizing handwritten field notes also offer a chance to immerse yourself in the data. When I was doing my field work, taking note of different buildings, I would also take notes of certain things that I've noticed, like, for example, the quality of the buildings and so on. So note anything that that you might find interesting while you are doing your field work, because that could actually help you during your analysis or confirm or disconfirm something that your participants said during the interviews or group group sessions and so on. Tip number 4, protect the data. Backup copies of all of your data or all the data that you collect, putting one master copy away and some place that is secure. Put one copy in a safe place where it will not be disturbed and cannot be lost, stolen, or burnt. Patton wrote that he tended to have one hard copy handy throughout the analysis, one copy for writing on, and one or more copies for cutting and pasting. Never copy and paste from the original master copy. And software can be used to save data in multiple digital locations like external hard drive, server, DVD copy, and flash drive, etc. And OneDrive right now. However, make sure backups are updated regularly and old copies are never destroyed. And if I may add also, if you have supervisors, sometimes the university may ask you to make the data, say, available to them as well. And through, or share the data with them through OneDrive. So make sure that you discuss this with your supervisors, if, say, you're a student doing a PhD or master's, and how they would like to, if they would like a share to have a look at the data. But make sure that it's only you or only you and them who have access to that OneDrive, say, or data in general, and not somebody else is able to have a look. And tip number 5, which doesn't need explanation, is really self-explanatory, is express appreciation and gratitude. And I've gone through this point before when I did a video on how to do interviews, for example. And one of the tips that I had was really about expressing appreciation and gratitude to people. If, say, you're doing an interview, it could be in the form of, a gift card or email appreciation and so on. And that depends on how you if you have a reward or any other way that you decide to do that. But always make sure that you express appreciation and gratitude to people, because they are people who took the time to be part of your research, and they will be there for a long time in your papers, in your thesis, and so on. And tip number 6, keep in mind that purpose drives analysis and design frames analysis. So in terms of the first one, that purpose drives analysis. There are different inquiry purposes. There is that Patton mentioned. There is basic research, there is applied research, summative evaluation research, and action research, and so on. These purposes inform design decisions and inquiry focus. They also undergird, as Patton puts it, they undergird analysis because they involve different expectations and norms for generating, validating, presenting, and using your findings. For students writing dissertations, Patton's advice is that students should follow very formal and explicit analytical procedures to create scholarly monograph with attention to methodological rigor. Students in general are expected to report in detail on all aspects of methodology, usually in a separate thesis chapter, which includes a thorough discussion of analytical procedures, problems, and limitations that you've come across while you're doing your analysis or methodology in general. Also remember that design frames analysis. So don't wait until data collection to figure out your analysis approach. Your design decisions or the design decisions that you make should anticipate what analysis will be done. Also, purposeful sampling strategy followed is based on what kind of results you want to produce. The data that you want to analyze should be based on your design. And finally, what you sample determines what you will address in your analysis. In terms of tip number 7, always take guidance and inspiration from examples and exemplars. Use classic works as a source of inspiration. And Patton included a list of so many really useful examples and exemplars in the first chapter of his book. That could be very useful for you if you're doing qualitative studies and certain types of qualitative studies. If a decision is made to use a specific theoretical framework or philosophy, then Patton has examples of some of these of important works, pieces of work that you can use as well. But obviously, times change, and you might also find it very useful to refer to new examples. For example, my thesis was very pragmatic. It was unconventional. It didn't follow an off-the-shelf, if you like, methodology. So I had to really consult, and it sat between interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary research. And I did a video, if you don't know what these terms mean, I did a video on that as well. And it was very tricky. So I had to read and look at so many different theses before and obviously did my own as a combination, and after being inspired by reading so many different theses. And tip number 8 is on and about using qualitative analysis software. So on using or not qualitative analytic software known as, for example, qualitative data analysis software, QDAS, or CAQDAS, computer-assisted qualitative data analysis software. Their purpose is to speed up the process of searching for words, phases, and themes, labeling interview excerpts and field notes for easy retrieval and comparative analysis. They're also useful for locating coded themes, grouping data together in categories, and for comparing passages and transcripts or incidents from field notes. So this is something useful to keep in mind if you're using or intend to use some sort of a software, a qualitative data analysis software, that these could be some of the ways that you can make use of these software. The decision behind what things go together to create a pattern, what constitutes a theme, what to name it, and what meanings to extract from case studies must be, these things, they must be, though, decided by you, or the person who is doing the analysis. It shouldn't be decided by the software, really. The analyst must decide how to frame a case study, how much and what to include, and how to tell the story. So by the end of the day, if you're using all of these softwares, by all means, they could be very useful for you. I've used some of them. But by the end of the day, remember that there are certain decisions that you need to make as the analyst. And you need to defend as well. Patton, just so you know, included some common pitfalls on mistakes made when using softwares, like, for example, in vivo. These he included these under page 776 of the book that I've referenced at the beginning. These pitfalls include students not understanding different types of qualitative analysis, like, for example, grounded theory, phenomenology, narrative analysis, and so on. They include students not understanding the different methodological approaches within these areas, where, for example, one grounded theory approach of a researcher differs from another. And maybe students not understanding how to code and analyze the data according to the chosen approach that they followed. Tip number 9, this should be self-explanatory, and common sense, is to schedule intense, dedicated time to conduct your analysis. And sometimes it will take, trust me, a long time to do that. And tip number 10 is to clarify and determine the initial analysis strategy that you have. And I think this got mentioned throughout this video. This is very important again, and self-explanatory as well. And finally, tip number 10 that Patton shared in his book is that to be reflective and reflexive. So as analysts, usually they have an obligation. There is an obligation on analysts to monitor and report their own analytical procedures and processes as fully and truthfully as possible. Analysts must observe own processes even as analysis is being done, and analysts must analyze and report on the analytical processes as part of the report of actual findings. The extent of this reporting will depend on the study purpose, your aims. And Patton has some extra tips on, that he included in the book on reflexivity and on using your own voice as well. So hopefully this video gave you very useful tips on building and how you can build a strong foundation for qualitative analysis.